Oh, so now, was ist verstanden? I mean, the whole is the Rebbe said two biurim, and was besteht the Rambam's tier of the two halachas of Leda Shirshim Matzadishin Bu Mamsikol Nimsa. The other nekuda of Im Yal Ashueni Matzi. One nekuda is that the two pratim in the mitzvah. Mitzvah is Leda Shirshim Malakai. Mitzvah is Leda Shirshim Matzadishin. But what's the shlila of Im Yal Aladas? Because in order for the sins the nekuda you say this of mitzvah is that the Welt should be behessen l'ratz na'alin. For that you need avsai pulachiyuvis to give the world the correct form of the ratz na'alin, and to be shelo of that aspect that shalei behessen with ratz na'alin. So since Yidiyas Hashem is a mitzvah you say this, so these two nekudas come ba'ad gasha, or every mitzvah has them, but it's not clear in the Ma'aseh mitzvah. Mashiach the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem, since according to the Ram that's the yisay the kol mitzvahs. So the nekuda kolos of mitzvahs is expressed in the yisay in the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. So side there's the chiyuv leida sheyashem matzarishin, and side there's the shlila of that a svara shalek fiyah emes is mufrach. That's the first beer that Rebbe says. Miyal aladas, not that I'm coming to be showed that's an Indian of that maybe there's shehu eini matzi. It's coming to say the second prat of the mitzvah. It's not enough only to understand sheyashem matzarishin, but it should be mufrach another way of learning. A mensch can verstehen azach. But lepoil, and this is the way you understand. But lepoil, they can't verstehen an ander vegechet. So you have to be shelo, the miyala dash in the ve'achar echlimatz. And then the Rebbe brings ba'emike is that these two inanim are neveya, it's that two inanim l'lakus. The nekuda that a person could ibrish down the Welt, you could be mechanech the world, could give the world another teichem neisif. Azeh the yad, the stam azeh yad. The fact that you can make it a yad manachas tefillin. To be pale on the yadis in the chiyuv, you can mashpi on the me'ach Yidiyas Hashem. That's neveim mitzad the fact that mitzad motzi rishon. Mitzad motzi, the Eibush is the makar mitzis. So not only the makar gufa mitzis of yad, but also the makar to affecting a shini chiyuv in the mitzis. That's mitzad motzi. Masha'ink in the nekuda being shelo, the gather of the me'ach k'meishu mitzad atzmei. That's mitzad the fact that the lukus is eini motzi. And mitzad that darga ain't the ve'achar echol motzi. The shaila is the chole eini motzi is hecher from Welt b'chlal. How can I have ashpa on Welt? The chole is hecher from Welt b'chlal. I've done Dr. Rebbe that his havos is from matzah and any matzah together. Matzah and any matzah are not two separate things. The pnimius of the matzah is any matzah. That means it's what's the darga? There's one darga. The darga, I'm saying there's the any matzah mitzad atzmei. And then there's tzimtzum. So Apache learns two different dargas. So the Rebbe is saying is there's one darga. The darga is that there's elokus which mitzad atzmei is any matzah, and mitzad tzimtzum is matzah. So it's not the mitzad tzimtzum we leave the any mitzad atzmei. That's the gather Indian. Then you say you have a something that mitzad, there is a couple of things, you have this type of musik, that mitzad atzmei it's this, that's the tzir, that's the mahus of this Indian. The mitzad etzem mahusay, mitzad atzmei is mufshish from this tzir, but mitzad haratzen to say for the shashlos, there's a tzimtzum. So the mele, the nivra vertach from the Eibush is a matzi, which is b'pnimi, the matzi is also any matzi, so as that sort mitzi is vert. A mitzi is which the poil exists, but mitzad atzmei, that means baba etzem, there's a kayach which negates his mitzvahs. That can sein, kenner sein. Means was for azach vert, azach was kenner sein, and the payal is here. The payal is here. Azach means not that we're saying that that he can't be. That's one of the tchunas and nivris azach sort zach, which by definition can't be. Stam just the Rebbe speaks to Gabi chukim that the chukim is a lower darga than edus. In the Maimer Kishol, there's a couple of places. The chukim is a lower darga of edus. Because that says the chukim, there's certain mitzvahs that there's a kasha and seichel. Chukim is not the darga of ratz na'alin k'meishu b'atz musay. As you learn from the mishpatim is the way the ratz is slavish and tam. Mashiach in chukim is the way the ratz is mitzad atzmei. But the Rebbe brings the Maimer Kishol that the chukim is also a darga which is mitzad atzimtzum. Because what's the pshat chukim that there's certain mitzvahs that there's tzebech ha-seichel. Mashal paraduma, so it's metayr is at-tmeim and it's metam is at-tayr. It's nicht verstanden. If it's a davar metayr, so why is it metam those that are mesasik with it? Tzebech ha-seichel. What's for tzebech ha-seichel? It means seichel has a kash on it. It's not the pshat that it's not. There's certain things, it's not understood, but there's no question. Certain things are not, there's no, you say, someone, b'chlal versteht sich gewisser Sach. Something is b'chlal beyond us. You have a question on it. It's b'chlal beyond the whole Metzius ha-seichel. You have certain things that there's a kaishi, it's heipach ha-seichel. That's where it's tzimtzum. I'm saying, that was not saying here that mitzad eni matzi, lechatchil nishtake mitzias. Means in the mitzias, there's a nekuda sashlila that there's in the Metzias liegt a kashav zich. It's not just the mitzad any matzi mitzad atzmi is l'chatchila existed. Here we're saying the any matzi the way he's the pnimius of the matzi. So how's the misbata the nivra? That there's a Metzias, and part of his tchunis is that he negates himself. There's a klepnish that he should be. Mitzad any matzi mitzad atzmi is it's not shaykh to say as is klepnish Metzias. Steht hecher bechaf the ganze meis. Ain't the vecher echel matzis. Here we're saying there's a tchuna in the Metzias that negates it. That is because the pnimius of the matzi is any matzi. Yeah. So the mele, so now we understand how the nekudas hashlila is. We're not talking about a shlila the chatchila was nicht like in Welt. We're talking about also the any matzi is the pnimius of Welt. So the halacha really is through halacha it is galevern the emes of what the Metzias Eilam is. That the Metzias Eilam mitzad ratzne elim is da, mitzad atzmi is nishta. And there's in other words the keach any matzi was gefindt sich in the halacha. The in the vecher echel matzis. Mitzad that any nekudas is heper ratzne elim is mushla betachlis. Mitzad sheni mitzad haratzin behesem tratzne elim there's tak Metzias of yeah that's the nekuda. Ha'inyan bar l'fiyarich. And the Rebbe explains that since how in Yonah of halachis is, in other words, it's not if you learn that the musik of halachis is a ma'asim mitzvah with afton doesn't afton yens. So then Yediyas Hashem is not a yisod in a person's life. If the musik of halachis we understand not the way there is a fire in this side. The musik of halachis is to do this and to do that. So why do you have to know this neighbor? Because who told me to do it? Why do I have to do what he says? I have to know that he's the one in charge, so then I have to do what he says. But not that you're putting on tefillin. What are you doing? You're putting on tefillin zachakol. What's that negates neighbor? Why am I doing it? Because the Eibishter said so. But the Nekudah V'Yediyas Hashem is not a yisod, and is not something that has an effect on the way I put out tefillin. So you have to know this Eibishter because he's the one that maybe I have to listen to. Mashiach, once the Rebbe says the Nekudah V'Halachas is to be payil and vel, you're not saying it's a ma'asim mitzvah putting on tefillin. The Nekudah Pi Halacha, the gather of Halachas is to affect the world. That is, you be behesem to Ratzon. How do you affect the world? You're putting on tefillin. How do you? It's not something putting on tefillin. You're being payil on the yad. That the yad should not stand be a yad, but it should be a yad which is connected to the Eibishter. A yad which is meshubah to Ratzon. You're being payil on your lave that it should be meshubah to Ratzon. How do you have the keach to do that? Because there's a keach halaki in the mitzvahs. Because the Eibishter is the makar mitzvahs, and the mitzvahs is affected by the Eibishter. And how do you have the keach to be shayla that aspect of the mitzvahs that's heipach Ratzon? Because the Eibishter negates mitzvahs, and besides the fact that he negates the mitzvahs, so he's shayla that aspect in Welt that's not behesem to Ratzon. So in order for the halachas to be in the sky and b'shleimus, a person has to be aware of the inyan. The guf halachas is a keich haliki. Was geht Tomer is doing all this? He's being payil on Welt. What's being payil on Welt? He's being mashpeh in chiyuvi in Welt. That the yad should have a shaychus to lukus befer chiyuvi, and he's being shayla that aspect in the yad that's heipach ratzon. That's not kfir ratzon. A person has a nivra hatash b'keich tanazazah. That's a keich haliki. The Eibishter mitzad echad negates the mitzvahs. Mitzad sheni, mitzad his ratzon nifran mitzvahs. So mitzad the fact that it negates the mitzvahs, you show that aspect in the nivra that's shlei behesem ratzon, and the fact that mitzad oliver tzena there is a mitzvahs, so there's a mitzvahs of Welt. But in order for this kayak to be begila in the pula when he does the halachis, so b'shas ba'yid is meir these two inyanim in alakus, these two inyanim in halachis, and mitzad echad alakus is the makar mitzvahs, mitzad sheni the Eibishter negates mitzvahs. So then his pu'ula on Welt will be a whole different eichel. Be more, and this idin has ashpa on a person. The halachis is nevea mitzad these two inyan. The fact, whatever he's doing in halachis is nevea mitzad the fact that mitzad echad the Eibishter is negea was tutzich in Welt, and mitzad sheni der zayin like visarveh. So the pa'ila, his whole life is based on these inyan. It's not just a ma'asim mitzvah. So maybe he said this is a chelik of halachis. The fact that it's a yisod is a chelik in the halachis. It's not just a fact that it's a yisod. It's a chelik of the halachas ma'aseh. Besides for the Rebbe saying a ma'aseh mitzvah, but what the Rebbe saying is the Yediyas Hashem. The Rebbe saying the pnim means it's halacha that it's these two pratim of matzi rishon and any matzi is the yisod the inin halacha, and of them vet gebuit the ganze. It's part of the halachas itself. It's not just an outside fact.
So why is it not part of the mitzvah Yediyas Hashem?
What do you mean it's not part of the mitzvah? It's the first halacha that Rambam says. The first halacha that Rambam says is that Yediyas Hashem is not just.
53 says Yediyas Hashem is just to lay the Hashem like that.
Yeah, but the Rambam starts off. The Rambam starts. It starts off. The Rambam halacha tells you on what you should base your life. That's negel halacha.
If you say the negel halacha to every mitzvah, why is it having that part of the mitzvah Yediyas Hashem to know that you're being pale?
You need to know that you're being pale.
It's not.
You don't have to know that. The Rebbe is saying apisechel. That's what halacha is. Why are you dealing with the world if you're not looking to affect it? Stam to do things that have no take.
Why is it not part of mitzvah Siddhis Hashem?
What's not part of mitzvah Hashem? They should know what they should learn. That's the mitzvah Hashem.
The Harvard 3 says, "Ulei Hashem from mitzvah Raf Leda." Sheshem Lekar.
Okay, that's not a different word. No, that's not chazach. Why are you saying this? They were saying weiter, that it's beyond. That's the state of everything. It's not part of the pratim. Mitzvahs are the pratim. This is the state part of the pratim. That's fakir. That's being mafli the scene, not being mamayit. Okay, let me give it a slide. He said Farat Rambam Shehi Alif. He said they said based on the Chachas, but the Yana before they went clear. Good. He said Farat Rambam Shehi Alif. He said they said this based on the Chachas. What's this? According to this beer, I mean, if you take the Ram seriously, every prat has to be negay. What's the negay? Do you say it for you say this? What's you say this? What's chachmas? You say it for you say this. Omut for chachmas. What's mean? It's negay halachis. So they learned in the Ram is starting to say with a militza. The beer is that there. You say this kayalach shalach. You say that there. Chol you say shalach shalach say for amadash. Kol mitzvah should be say for zayim. Iker das meishav elachim. In yonim mitzvahs you say this. The Ram himself says that the mitzvahs in sefer amadash, we even call are in yonim yisayim. Iker das meishav elachim. And where I call panim halachis is say the atayra. Teir Chachme is that goes in the entire Teir. Koya Allah Shel Achri Allah Shel Teir. Frat Shel Achri Sefer Amada, which is called Chachme, because Teir is Chachme. Shema Kozik Hi Chachmaschem again. Pisa Yuvan Gam Mashagabi Yiseidis Nikat Allah Shen Yiseidis. Gabi Chachme is Nagat Amud Chachme. It's good. We'll see. The reason the Taish basically in general is that Yiseid Teir is mostly in Yanim, which benegea to the person towards the Eibishter. At least Hilchas Yiseid Teir itself. Is meneget, it says Abbas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, Yitis Hashem. That means a person's own life to be connected to the Eibishter. Then the rest of Sefer Yad is being pile on Farm Shabba'ilam, being pile on your Yad, being pile on a Chayfetz Ba'ilam, being pile more on Metzias from Bechutz. So the person is, there was an attach up what he means to say this. I'm saying the person is the one, the Yid is the one that's being pile, the Ashpa and Velt. So David, this, the Yidiyas Hashem has to be a Yisad for the Inyanim which are Mechayiv in your own personal life. Your Abbas Hashem, your Yiras Hashem, and it has to be an Omud Lagabe Vasayid get Uftan involved. That's going to be the, and there's a chilik, the Eifan idea by Negea to the Inyanim Pnimim of a person, and the Eifan idea in Holocaust, which is Negea to be Mashpiyat on Chutz and Veld. Let's get to it. So first of all, Rebbe said, Hevsh Mni Sid Lamed Muvana Pash, they say to Dovash All Muvuzis Kalabini. But Adi I say they Tachan Kalabini. Yeah, it's not just Mechazik. It's the, you can't start the building without having the foundation. Without the foundation, can we go on Shishtanim? Can't start something in the year. It has to have a base. Once you have a base, you can have extra on the bini. Shaken omud, you could have a structure without an omud, but it's going to be weak. It could fall. You can't start building in the year. Das versteht sich. Shaken omud, rak temech sel aber nicht alav. Makbiya, aber kumish lever in tolava omud. So, there are types of people. Zeh mashka, Allah is these say this gadram Allah is said, Allah is the chachmas Allah omud. Why? Hilchas say that say that Dias Hashem, they're not speaking on matzin any matzin. The Etzim Yidiyas Hashem is a Yisaid. It's not shaykh to say Nevuah without the musik of a Lakus. Yidiyas Hashem leitzir klal. The Ram mentions 3 mitzvahs in the Yisaid there. There's, what does he speak about? Yidiyas Hashem, Achtas Hashem, Avdas Hashem Beiros. So we're dealing with the Eibishter, we're dealing with the Lakus. V'Eisa, the Regam Ba'alach is Shvinin on Nevuah. Because the whole gather of Nevuah is Dvar Hashem. V'Meila Nimtze Yidiyas Hashem, He Yisod Shalach Yisaid. We'll see later. When the Ram used the lashon, he says being Maram is like the etzem in of Yidiyas Hashem is a yisad legabe those mitzvahs that are yisaidis. Which what are yisaidis? Mainly when he speaks of the Hilsei which is Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem Nevuah. Legabe the inyanim without a lukus hates Hashem the ganze ma'aseh.
Why Nevuah? Why do you have Yiras Hashem and Nevuah?
See, that Gosha is not now Yidiyah yet. The Rebbe read the are chveis, but
that's Kodesh is that Gosha, no?
It doesn't say when they get to Nevuah, but
that's the problem.
But it happens to be that Nevuah needs I'm saying it doesn't say it, but Nevuah is a Yuchot Pnimi between the Navi and the Lukus.
Why can't you believe
if the Lukus, but Emunah Mitzadat, no, you're saying for the musik of Nevuah to take place, there has to be that the Navi has a sag in the Lukus.
The Navi, why you?
Let this do.
Sure.
What's the end of Nevuah? The inyan of, if you can't believe in Nevuah without knowing the concept of a Lukus having a kir with a Nivra.
Believing in the Eibishter is a...
But I'm saying, what does it mean Yisod? You can't be Mitzayer Nevuah without, with the Lukus being something which is Bavshata Legam from Mitzvah Seilus. Emunah means that a Lukus has no relation to the Asagas of Nivraim. It's not something that you could know, not something that you could process, not something that you could internalize. It's Inyan Makif.
Saying a person can't believe in the Navi and Nevuah.
It's not a question what you could believe in. The Rebbe is saying that like, the musig of Nevuah, Yediyas Hashem is a Yisod Ikri Nevuah. Hashem does not mention you can believe in Nevuah. It's not, you can believe that there's a Navi. In the print, the Rebbe that it's Yediyas Hashem. Now, even in the order, I think by Mitis Inyan, you can't have a Mudas Hashem and a Avas Hashem. Api Pasha is taught what the Rebbe says in Chanya. In the Rambam. So any Yid that doesn't have a Sagas Hashem doesn't have Avas Hashem.
Not real Hashem.
Okay. And you can't believe in Achdas Hashem. You have to know it.
What do you believe in?
Because the Rambam speaks about a Navi. If you want to believe in the Navi the way the Rambam brings it, is a Yid. The Rambam says in the view, a Navi is a Yid that is miyuchad with Asagas Alakus.
I need to believe in that. I need to know it. After Hashem, the way the Rambam was retired after Hashem, the whole thing is to understand it. That is what
Hashem
is.
The Shayla is Yediyas Alakus, are you sat? You're saying I'm saying to the Musig of Nevuah, not to the Mitzvah of Nevuah. To the Musig of Nevuah. Okay. It's in the brackets.
I understand.
Das hat man gefragt auf dem WhatsApp?
Huh?
Kaze. Das ist schwere Scheile, das ist die Scheile.
Well,
all the questions they asked are the questions from there. That's the other Scheile.
No, I actually was the one that asked the question.
Okay, good. Anybody answered over there?
No one answered.
Word about the Nusach of the Rambam. What does it mean Tnai Ikri B'chol Teichna? In the mitzvahs or in these inyanim?
I mean, the way he explains in the heart, that's how to fulfill the mitzvah. No?
Okay.
What about the other mitzvahs?
In which?
Other mitzvahs didn't say that there. You can come to Shema, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that. Nishlayim b'zeh. I'm saying when Nigdashti could be that it's a teitzah of the Avos Hashem. It's not the way the Rebbe is speaking here. The mitzvah that he's speaking about is Avos Hashem. It has to be to the extent of your Meiser Nefesh. It's a prat in Avos Hashem, not a separate mitzvah. The Rambam. Right? Yeah, it's a separate. Yeah, but I'm saying could be with according to what the Rebbe is saying here. L'payel, it's not a separate inyan. Why is it Yisod when you say that Terek Kiddush Hashem? Why is it just Nefesh Yisod? Because the Ayit's Keshet to the Eibusha has to be such a Eifin, business is Nefesh. So maybe the Av is, the Gabi that, it's a Prat in the Av. He's saying the Gabi Nuvinj in the Nevuah. They were saying in the Nevuah, not the Emunah in the Navi. I think that's the.
The first from other no.
Like upon him, this in L'chura can make in a Navi, even though you don't, you could believe, but you're not. You could believe. Okay, this prat, I'm not so sure. I'm saying is if a Navi means a yichud pnimi with a lukus, a me'ach adam, and there's a yichud pnimi with a lukus. So every way the Ram says is shalim and asaga, there's dargish neviim. So when a yid believes in a Nevuah, it means he has his musig in the lukus says that the Eibush, he has no taich in what the Eibush is. He has no tfis in the lukus. He has no idea. So what does it mean that it could be dargish neviim? The Ram says it could be dargish. What does it mean that it could be dargish? If a lukus is shalei lefi erech hanivra klal, he has no tfis b'chlal what the musig of a lukus is. So he doesn't have it doesn't have an understanding of what Nevuah is. This answers your question. I think so. Good.
That's Pshat Dvar Hashem.
The Rebbe in the Prim is not going into the part of Yediyah versus Emunah. The Prim read without Lukus. Yediyah is Hashem for all other mitzvahs. And I'm saying is, no, the other thing is, you could put on film without knowing that the Eibush was the one that said to put on film.
No, Maspik Emunah close Hashem.
Weird.
Next paragraph. He is going into the Indian of Yediyah versus Emunah.
call this question. You're saying that the Rebbe read Legabi this. Okay. But the Rebbe's mad gives the word of Devar Hashem that it should be taken even of Dibur, that Elkos has is Misyachas Tatzir, not only in of Shittis. If it's a Munah, it's not Shach in of Dibur could be. Ishlein. Okay, let me get weiter. Wenn sich das schon ist, kann ich schicken, aber schon nachher ist das Teil, ich lasse sie mal, ich habe noch Zeit mit sie so, und kann man kontrollieren sehen, kann bli ha say die Idee ist schon. Was kann man close waschen. Wenn ich ist die Idee ist schon, aber es edo und ich muden mit human, hier betachs schlimmes weil. Nimmt so shayachas de leda shiyash motzi khulu, aber es edo rak bei even schon amut kana, war muda khachs. Ja. Ist das was ist das negel Allah? Dort der Maß given what it means to say this in the Chachmas.
How's it Tachas Hashem so you have to 3 days Hashem?
That there was Nazir before.
All these mitzvahs. Because
it's not free. Even if you understand the mitzvah well. Even limudan it has to be chadar with the two musagum matzi and any matzi. Have you idea of Bruno Lucas? You say it ba'amad im chalukim and nishnar b'shayach glad varam misadam im macham alei, and that this is the foundation, this is the base of the Eden. And this is the pillar elegam ba'efen mitziyusam kshalatza. Das versteht sich. The yisaid is behelim. Because you can't have the structure without the yisaid. The yisaid is what's ma'afsher the structure. Facilitates it. That's our word. So it's not a part of the structure. It's beyond the structure which facilitates the structure. So the yisaid is mitziyush yisaid behelim. Tamam b'karka. Mash'enk in amud is begoli al gabi akarka. But then I've zog I'm going to get only the Hashem. Shechilik b'neim hu lei like we have sheikhos and say this v'achachim so gam ba'efim mitziyusim him. In other words, there's two fanim. How a yid is supposed to have Yidiyas Hashem? How are you supposed to be? There's a concept. The Eibishter is matzah and any matzah. Wie darf ich wissen das? The Allah is mechayev. What's the eifin idea? The eifin idea has to be in two ways. An eifin of a yisod that the Rebbe is going to touch behemshach means a hanocha pnimis in the nefesh. Means to have the hergish in the Indian of matzah and any matzah. The Indian of matzah and any matzah should be nirgash benefesh adam. And it should also be an aifin they're able to deliver it to others. It should be an aifin of amud. An aifin that you're able to deliver it to azulas. It's two separate things. You can have an idea they have rayas for it, you have yichachas for it, you're able to explain it, but the concept is not nirgash by you. The Indian gufa legt sich nicht bei dir. Kennst das Maßwas and all gute Sachen, but the Indian gufa legt sich nicht bei dir. Mashenkein the mitzvah is, you say this, the aifin idea has to be in two ways. An aifin of a yisod and an aifin of a amud. And even that the Indian should be nirgash by you personally, and that the mile is that the Indian guf is nirgash, but that's not a mensch allein, zayin meach, what the hergish in the Indian. But to give it over to others, you have to have rayas v'yichachis. To someone that's mechutz lo Indian. And that type of idea you also have to have. Both Indianim you have to have. So here the Ram is being meram is to a fanim you have to have the idea. That's mamash negeh. This is also a safa, why the words you say, this is negeh al-halacha. Another word, because there's a difference of how to know. Everyone can just say, leidish Hashem matzurish. In what's paraifin davon is. So then the Rebbe Masber, there's two efanim. How you have to know the Indian? Why is there two efanim? Because the since the of matzah and any matzah is it has stuff. Minyanam is in order for the pulas and mitzvahs to be b'shleimus. There's two efanim in pulas and mitzvahs, and behesim lezeh there has to be two efanim in the idea. The Rebbe puts in this is already putting in the Hochabad and the Eschachim ben Adas. The Rebbe haktas in the Rambam. The Rambam's meram is to the. It's not stam chad ram is idea not emuna, but also now pratim of emuna, chachma and bina, everything's. The Rebbe is Chabad ben a ganze chiddush, but it's in tzadik of nasi chaya. The Rambam and his merum is each prat and the. That's me get the sidam. Chiddush ben Agal Erev Sheikhus and Leisid Zvachach, Misal Gam Efim Mitziyus. The Rebbe says in the beginning that he's not looking at any other svardim outside of the Rambam. Yeah. Say this Hashem, la lochas and you say this and begeder hell. For Ahmed this Hashem lochas and you say begeder gid. That hit on the repetition. For beer. But this Hashem can maybe chol yidei there's two in yon. Every day has this. There's the nekudas Indian, means the Indian alein. Not the rayas for the Indian or being able to deliver it in a way that Azula should be able to understand it. The gufa Indian, the muhusa Indian. Vi nemt the mensch the gufa Indian b'derech hanacha. Hanacha sichlis. It's not like Maramuna, but it's nirgash in the person, the Amitas Indian. That's al derech the idea of Chachma. It's bekannt mit dem, yeah? The word wegen dem, Sheish Motzi. And then, K'mei Shanach about the Asbar V'chul. We should say 2 words about this Chachma Bina, even though but just the it's not as it touch on all the Chachma Bina is before you understand the Indian, which is you process it. First year is when you're the Nakuda that you're introduced to the Indian. When you're actually introduced to the Indian, it's only a Nakuda then. It's not yet processed. And then you're mefaret in Prat. Yeah, there's never push. You can't start off with Prat. But in the Chassidus state that Chachma Bina are 2 separate keiches, 2 different efanim being teifes in Indian. Or just I think this Nakuda is mamchish this, but you say the Chassidus state that the call Misha called Tamish answer says a native Smer. So you have a Rav that's a Emes Rav, so it's not, you won't be able to cover the Seichel he's after saying. The Rav is much higher than the Talmud. He's higher than the Talmud. So b'shas the Talmud is being Mekabel Divrei Rav, at that moment, he can't be thinking about how he's processing the Indian. He can't be thinking about to understand it. He has to be only focused on absorbing what the Rav is saying. That's a different keli in the Meir. There's one efen of Tfisa that you're looking that it should be, that you should understand it. You should grasp the Indian. Then there is that your mayach is in a tnu of Kabbalah. You're in a mode of absorbing what the Indian has to say. You're focused now on the Indian. That's also a tchun in the mayach. That's the tchun of Chachma. Bina is that the seichel is in its own seer. You're investigating, you're trying to process that the Indian should be monach in your seichel. Then there is that the seichel is in a tnu of Kabbalah from the Rav. I'm saying when the Talmidim are sitting and listening to the Rav, they're focused on concentrating to understand what he's saying. What's the tune of concentration? It means you're looking well to hear what the Indian has to say. You're not the mode of concentration. You're not focused now on does this suit my understanding or not. You're looking to let the Indian be nirgash by you. You're looking to concentrate on what the Indian has to say. So your me'ach is naif and being a kid in the Kabbalah to hear what the Indian is saying. And that eifin is that when your me'ach is in a mode of the tnu of Kabbalah to the Indian, so then taka the Indian is nirgash. The musig is Meir in the me'ach. Mashiach in Bina is not wieder me'ach steht in a tnu from bittel to mekabel sein to absorb from the Indian. That it should be munach in his kelim. So that's already his kvinzach in seine kelim and he's masim that the Indian should be understood according to his tfisa.
What shot to be mekabel just to take the nekuda?
Say, what's the tnu of concentration? Tnu of concentration. Person is concentrating. Say you're learning a thesis. You got puzzled for a second. What do you do? What do you do after? You concentrate. What is concentrating? When you concentrate, so then you see a new understanding or whatever, something that you missed, and then you process that new vision. You process it in your brain to be nas achid with it. But the tune of concentration makes you a keli to the Indian. It means you're not focused now. Let me delve better in what this Indian has to say. That's a tune of Kabbalah. You're focusing now to hear, to be more, say, attentive to what the Indian is saying. Once you're more attentive to the Indian, so now your me'ach is a keli. So there was a bisla reis von sich from where you were holding, and you opened yourself up to hear what the Indian has to say. Once the Indian, then herzach by what the Indian sagt, and then you process it. Once the new, it's a shlab in seichel. But if the seichel wouldn't have, it's this tnu of concentrating is also a tnu in seichel. So you say something, someone says focus is he wasn't mamish learning. I'm saying, but the tnu of concentrating is not to try to figure out what you know what the Indian is and try to figure it out. You're being mason left what the Indian is saying. I'm saying a person is in a tnu of Kabbalah, and he's not a tnu of Kabbalah, but maybe it's a gedder emunah. So the amitis Indian is taken nirgish ben. It's not stam. So Kafan Chassidus says when someone's learning, there's a shlat in Chachma, so imitzrat kasha, and then he's focused on the Indian, and this kasha goes away in the shlat of Chachma already, even though he can't explain why the kasha doesn't exist. The Indian is clear by him. Even though Lepayel he can't explain yet to himself even why it's clear. But Lepayel, the truth of the Indian and the clarity of it, lacked them in cup. He didn't put it into words yet, and he didn't process it that it should work with his mahalach haseichel. But he got to the truth of the Indian to a certain extent. That means that the fact that you're open to hear what the Indian has to say. Al derech the difference between a person seeing something or hearing something. When a person sees something, so if you don't see a machzeh, and someone describes to you a certain story. So what do you know of the story? You only know how much you're mitzayer and you're mayach the story. It means you didn't see it itself. Someone's telling you that this person went there, so you know what you're mitzayer of it. When someone sees the story itself, it's a different way of knowing. What's happening is revealed to you. And then you're going to process it and how it's nitfas in your mayach. But before how it's nitfas in your mayach, how it's nitfas in your aisius, you just saw the story itself. And al derech you haven't seichel. There's the musik. Before you found aisius for it and how it's misyashiv in your mayach. That's al derech how you're going to be a person that had a certain vision. People can see the same thing. L'poil, they're going to describe it in different words. That's how how they process the inyan in their mayach. Every person is different. But then there's the inyan was nisgalatin. Al derech you haven't seichel. You have these two inyan. You have one inyan in seichel that you understand it. It's munach and it's miyushiv in your kelim, and then you have that your seichel is in the tunu of Kabbalah to her in the musik. That's chachma, keach ma. To her in the minyan obviously.
That's how nachasukah.
That's there. Nachasukah. It's not the derech shakta v'tari v'avana. It rachs zu. It's a her in the minyan. Saying there's one in. Let's say in Pashas a person could understand something. Let's say you have a raya that the Eibush is matzah rishon, but the concept of matzah you don't. It's not nirgav you. I'm talking about the concept. It could be the shlemas in it. The fact that the Eibush is matzamtzim in matzah does go for herzach in mayach. The musik is nirgash ben. A kind person and a chveis. I don't know exactly. I don't know which document to use, but. A good certain things, it's not stam. It's a theoretical knowledge. You have a hergish in the Indian. Azazach say azazach. You have a hergish in the Indian. It's not just. I don't know which document to use.
But the Rav and Talmud, the Rav's Indian is not upkalik on Talmud. He's just ready to accept it.
I understand, but I'm just trying to bring out. There's a tnua of seichel. It's not when he's listening to the Rav, his mayach is working. But there's a mayach we look at seichel, you understand it or not? There is the ability to concentrate to the herina inyan sichli. Not to verstehen the inyan sichli in your seichel. You're not talking about seeing a picture, a gashmizige thing. Herina gedank from a Rav. But there's the first process before versteht. A Talmud doesn't have the chush of Kabbalah, a kenish herin. He's not open he can't focus. He doesn't know how to concentrate. He doesn't know how to be in a tunu of Kabbalah to divrei Rav. But the Brachal Nishtan. If someone stays in his own asagas, and the Rebbe read, so the Chatchila only takes those in Yanim that are masim with his kelim. That's not emes makabel. Was the red gesagt that's shalei berachar then. Shalei berachar. How is he understanding it? But there's a tnuah that he's able to not to be masiach das from his own chushin, from his own way of understanding. And his mayach is in a tnuah of Kabbalah and klita to hear, to absorb what the Rav is saying, to concentrate on what the Rav is saying. That's a keach sichli. And with that, the inyanim, the seichel that the Rav is saying, is meir by the Talmud. That he has to process it in his own keach. It's not chazak. And I'm saying seichel is not just understanding. There's a musik they didn't know about, and now you give space for this new concept to be introduced to a new concept. What's the kayach that makes your mayach? I forget about the Talmud. What's the kayach that makes the mayach be open to a new concept? A person understands a certain thing a certain way. He has to be open to hear something they didn't think about before. A new tfisa. And the poil der Wissach von them. That's understanding. Wie der Wissach davon. You have certain things that if you thought that this is a chumash, sometimes you know it's a gemara. It's not a chumash. There's nothing new. You know that there's could be a gemara on the table, there could be a chumash on the table. You know they could be mistaken. Boom, someone just clarified for you what's going on over here. There's no new musik being shared with you. But let's say there's a new musik that you didn't know about before that's being shared. How do you introduce to a new musik that your mayach didn't contain this concept before? So there's an nekudah bittul. You're open to hear another inyan, anay inyan. So nicht gat frei. That's a keach a keach that is not mugbal mitzuyah according to his own tfisa. He's open to something new. So his meach is in a tnu of Kabbalah Tanini. I don't know if this is the Rosh Hashanah Negel here. But I'm saying Hanach is still every single malam as bar. What I'm saying is what's Manegel Inenu is. So heard the meaning. I'm saying is Pashta isn't even saying regular ideas. Let's say I don't have a dugma mukhshis, but in anything you someone asks you or which memorim to learn first. I don't know exactly. Which Gemara do you like best? I don't know exactly. Something like that. Or so there's the way it's nirgash by you, and then you find words to deliver to someone else. You have a certain hergish in the Indian. Not only hergish, but you have a certain the way you sense it. The way you sense it is your sense. That's your hergish, and then you have to use words to deliver it to someone else. You can't give over a hergish. Talking about even a hergish sichel. To give over something that you sense in your mind, you have to find asis. So there's the anachas sichel, the fact the way you sense the Indian, and there's the asis that you deliver it to someone else. That's already a Indian of hasbara and hanacha. Verstanden the Indian. The Rebbe brings chacham here, but I'm saying. There's theoretical things that you know, and then there is hanachas was as sehertzach as it. You're margish din. Someone's going to ask you how a certain teacher was or is. That's it. So you have your experience of the Indian. Your experience tends to shiver again, and then du gefinst asis. That's so there's the hergish Indian, even in seichel. There's the way your take on it, and then you're going to deliver it in words. From asis and hesber. There's the way the Indian is munach by you. However, move on, okay? Good. Noch a sichel shel amayli masbara. Yeah, there is the print from Chachma. The fire related this from Chachma. So famous chassidus always means everything's only from Meir Nevuchim. So we only know this that this is a pi musag Meir Nevuchim is a pi seichel pi da verstehen. So the Rambam is writing a sefer. There's the posh the pshat in the sefer. Then there's a pi seichel. Was is seichel? The Rambam sagt Meir Nevuchim. So Meir Nevuchim sagt Hanoch is hakdome. But do was what the Isa become more the shasikra because of the other way. His ames est liha inyan ber ihr de chachma shalom alem asbal. Geen paskor eva pesken krav, even though you didn't have a terrace in the kasha. Oh, so now noch ist das shalom asbal. He digs durch who atzmei deo, maar was negel in nede do musik noch. Das sorte dia allein weis und filtes. Yes, a hergish sichlini. He's magish da mit the but ein bichote the khrech so losse shei kaplan. He chaches rayis doesn't necessarily have. But emalin herzach has the remes. You can't necessarily give it over. Shel im bezadain as bar sikhlis. Be mele any ba peles bachutz. As inking shay idea ba behesber sikhli. A person understands it and he has mathematical equations to prove it, let's say. So then then it's objective knowledge. You can give it over to someone else. I think I'm telling you, she's built this last year, but suk the gather gilu. Is that Rabbi said, "Do with chilb machine and malvik this Hashem, or gam chilb machine suk mishloch zater." Says two ifanim and halachas. One, you say that because you say this in shayachis umekemen b'achshavas ad. Means avas Hashem, yiras Hashem, yidias Hashem. That's all in yonim pnimiyim was negeh a mensch beinei levin atzmei. What's munach b'him nefesh? Hamachusav and alamim izolasim. Ein adam yedei ma shabli b'shalaberet. Ik in Allah geschlagen, ik gezegd dat hij dan because Shem Chachma is in Shayachis and came and the Dibur Maisi Adam nit megam zulas. That's already none of Dibur Maisi, putting on full in davening even. That's all already none of char none gluyim lachutz. Avas Shem is in primi in nefesh Adam. Mas igen Dibur Maisi is already none of char klapi chutz. So the Rebbe is saying in order to the elokusal uftan bachutz. So the fact that Allah is going to peel and involve bachos, that's the kayach halaki. In order for the kayach halaki to be begilui, zalzaim is after zayin. So the person is the one affecting this kayach halaki. The kayach halaki comes, the halachis is invested in a yid was peiled the halachis. In order for these kayachas to be an eifin of gilui, and that's the shleimus hakiyum, so it has to be an eifin that it should be able to get it to be mashpia on the chutz. So the idea has to be an eifin of gilui. If a person has idea as Hashem only an eifin that he himself has a hergish nina, but it's not shaykh to the mitzvah b'chutz. So this keach halaki is not an eifin that has ashpa, and it's yeshichutzimen. And the idach, if a person only doesn't have the hergeshini, he only has the inin klapi chutz, that's echt technisch. Because in order for the elokus, when they get the previous nefesh adam, elokus has to be pale in you much deeper. And for the elokus being pale in you much deeper, the idea has to be an eifin of hanacha sichos, a tifres artidiyah. Dortim, the Nekuda is the Santam Shat that Allah is the Abisha comes in his pale. The Abisha wants that a person should be pale, these you know. So the Kayach was this Kayach Aliki which exists in Allah is Nitan Tayyid through the fact that he's Chodr with these two non-Malakus. How does the Abisha's, the Nekuda of Matzi, the Matzi, come, how does it materialize itself in Welt? Through a Yid. But er is Drugan mit die zwei non-Malakus. He personifies these two non-Malakus. And then can is Pelas and Welt. How does he personify these two non-Malakus? And every inyan lefierke. Matzin any matzah biyachas to the primis hanefesh has to be an eifin that seherzach that the whole take of inyan. That's dafka an eifin of hanacha. Matzin any matzah that being pelam mitzvah shim b'chutz has to be an eifin that shaychet to the chutz. Sounds like
Does it
part of the
work that way to put on tefillin in your hand? You have to have.
What I'm saying, everything happens without the person being aware of it. But that's not the correct way of doing a mitzvah.
The correct way is when you put on tefillin, hanacha sichos is not enough. You have to.
Since you're affecting now your hand. You're affecting now that you're davening to the Eibusher. So it's your dibur. Your dibur has to be the dibur as a kayach. I don't know how it works in tefillin, matzah any matzah. What I'm saying is, anytime you're being pale in a mitzvah shin b'chutz, so the keach halaki is being now mashpia on the chutz. How is the keach halaki being mashpia on the chutz? That's through the person being connected to this keach. Saying we're looking at it as this is the keach halaki in halachas. It's not keach halaki in halachas. When a yid does a mitzvah, the keach of matzah is invested in a yid doing a mitzvah. As if der idea wird sein bei dir, or as if it sein der keach with pels and avelt. If by you the keach halaki is betachas helen, your ashpan the rule is going to be betachas helen. If by you in your life the keach of matzah and any matzah is more bezgalus, so the effect on Velt will be more bezgalus. I'm just not saying in the first time in the first meeting that we had over here about this hadran, do we see begali the ashpa of the Velt beitzach? If we would have been aware with the matzah any matzah with the begali, Velt the nefesh gezen. These tzaddikim or yidden, which by them is begali, the inyan of matzah and any matzah. So when they do halacha, they're margish the salaych bazeh that is neveh mitzad the fact that the Eibush is a matzah. That's a durgan of mazeh in zeh mitzias. So they take the keichalik is begiling. So the ashpa and velt is begiling. We do a mitzvah, we're just doing a technical act. So we don't see anything. The keichalik is happening. It's in music halasla, but the pelts with hafasel. And I'm saying, I just want to bring out one thing. Even the hafasel doesn't happen in a way of tricks or hocus pocus. There, you do halachas and it happens. It's going to have to be in his gal. What I'm saying is, it's halachas goes through a person. So the way by you the Indian is durgenumen, it's not going to be v'finach. In order to affect an outside world, the matzah in any matzah has to be in a way that affects an outside world. Who's the one that makes the matzah in any matzah relate to Welt? That's a yid doing halachas, because the matzah, the elikos goes through the avodas adam. I'm saying is it sounds a little bit wide, but I'm a tracht rein. Behemshach what the Rebbe is saying, that's the hemshach. If you take the musik of halacha seriously, that it's actually lasting shalom ba'elam in a real way to affect the world, and the affecting the world of Adam, only the Eibishter could change the world, and the Eibishter is through a person. It doesn't happen by itself. And through a person, so mainly you are the ones. You're the memutza, but through them fits the minyan. So the Indian is going to be nimshach according to the way the Indian is by the memutza. The Indian I'm trying to get to your pnimis has to be an aifin that it's a idea pnimis. Of a male, it's going to be mamali your chayim beifin pnimi. And the Indian I'm trying to get to the chutz. The idea has to the keichaliki has to be aifin of ashpa lachutz. I'm saying is the way it only is bachutz is not mashpia in a person's heart. A person's his own avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem is sensitive to viselekt zvadir. Not the things that are objective svaras, theoretical svaras. That's negam tzis mechutz is affected by that. But avos v'irasi v'tusach by there and dein primi sachayim, that's totally what your anachas and nefesh is. So the matzah any matzah has to be an eifin. That's a yanocha sichel.
Are these also reflections of matzah and matzah?
Every halacha that you do is nevira.
I'm saying, but way it's by the person, the way it's put on the world.
Yeah.
Last thing also, you're saying that matzah and matzah, easy not.
Yeah, there's that.
Halam and Gila.
Yeah.
That's a reflection.
No. Generally, there's got of strength.
Yeah. This is not connected to the habit.
Why? It's a titzav, the way the Rebbe explains the whole gather of halacha and the whole musik of halacha and the concept of hamshich. This concept of hamshich, I understand the whole concept of halachas. Halacha nishkin truken azach. The Eibusher gave us to occupy us with things to do. So he gave us halachas. Or the person should come to shlemusay. The mitzvah should be miyuchad with a lukus, which is through a person. And for that, it's totally how by you a lukus is Meir. See, what I'm saying is, if you have to be the one to affect something on something else, you're the one that has to affect it. And the way the Indian is by you, that's the way it's going to affect the Zulas. You're the one, if it's not the pshat that you say halacha doesn't work independently. It works through a person. Look, even if it's behelim, because matzah in any matzah is behelim. A yid's connected to the lukus, it's there anyway. But by mitzvah dvarim, l'poil has to go through ma'aseh adam. Yeah, we'll help him there. וזה מה שהרמב מדייק, יסיידה והחוכמס, כי הנה דידס השם, צריך לחדר ולפעול ביסיידס והחוכמס ובכל מקום לפי. Means the makom has to be a keli for it. It's er b'kelim. The kayach is since the kayach haliki is pale on the nivra, so the nivra doesn't have a keli to them. B'chol makom lefi inyan. In an Indian pnimi, the kayach has to be an eifin pnimi, because if not, if it's a kayach of chitzenius, the pnimi is not a keli for chitzenius. And the kayach what the shkamen can ashpa, like every ashpa of a mashpia and a makabel. The mashpia has to be behesin to the makabel. Allah says, you say this, you say, let me bring together Mashav said, "No, Chamuchim is Allah. See the Chaim one day. So much to call for the Ben Obey. You say, "Etzemana, Sheish Shemotzi." Shakatam Atzi Marke Sheish Samuchachwa. Shakem Allah is the Chacham is. Give it to say them together deeper. Mais of Nigel Gam Zullah. See, I think I'm in the Yisrael Pel Ben Obey. Shall Amad Gilu. This is the end of the. Now the Rebbe goes into already a pianava b'ter sachsidus. Mikan ad l'seif is already not part of the hadron gufet. The Shina Chabart. A pianava b'ter sachsidus. Piano b'ter sachsidus Muvena is gone. Let me say the whole thing an hour. But the same sikha hadron on Tamid. It's an hour and a half. Reingepackt the ganze. Piano b'ter sachsidus Muvena. Gam shaygas at say the sum the chochmas l'shem avayim ulubes ben. Du at divrei Rebbe David anagid nefesh shel Rambam that ohom nish neterish chibezikne Rambam master b'shem amfurish. You say that some of the chochmas are shrashetevis havai. Makes the answer cheshbon over here. The Rebbe Shem Avar giving freer what you say that is the ganze zach. Now the Rebbe is going to explain how the Indian Hanal is masim with the Nukud of Shem Avaya, which the Shem Avaya is explained in Chassidus, and it's going to be understood in. So with Pashtus, the Rambam wanted to start a sefer with mentioning Shem Hashem. This is Rosh Davis. The Rebbe is masbir here that there's 4 aces in Shem Avaya, and each Yisaid is masim with Yud. According to the Rebbe, explained what Yisaid this means. You say this in Nachasichlis. How you say this is in Yanim Pnimi, also in Yanim of Yanim Nelam. And Amud HaChachmas are in Yanim Vashpa Lachutz, in Yanim of Gilui, so that's behesin to the Yudke and Vavke. Yudke is Nelamis, Vavke is Gluyis, that's going to be the whole Hamshcheni. We come in Yanim in there. Dal the Ezer Shemavai Nachalak is the base. Yudke Rishena, that's called Nistaris. Vavke Achrena, it's called Niklas. Yeah, it's before common kindness. Steht in Rambam, steht in Chassidus, but steht is bechol chedik because mashpia makabel. As it steht, the yud is the mashpia and the k is the makabel. Here the shade mekalas mesud. Here mekalas mesud. A beer is the big starter. Eis yud in the kud. Eis ke the shade kasher in the kud the yud. Bob can se spash the slayer verleg. Tun es say. Heinish in shaban kud is part the prot. Kiven in about this such as here the shade in the kud the khanin prot is part of as mashpia and Allah is lost in this story. This is Chassidus common kindness. Aval eis vav shet menasik avarim shchamayl matam relan shchav gilui. There's two fun. There's pratim which are the gilui of the inyanim of the mashpia, and then there's the mitzias makabel. That's the keachrin is the mitzias makabel, and the makabel the way he's been coming. Pise nimtza shekol teva mit all the teva says Ramad Chachmas. He took Mr. Shachas la Isa Shemavai Babrishis. According to what the Rebbe explained before, what's the pshat they say that says Ramad Chachmas? Verstatement that each Indian is behessen to the Eis. Because he said, which is speaking about the Yisrael Even Shalom Nachas Sichlis, that's the Rebbe Vargem and Frier. That's the Yud. You say the Shein Allah is Negel Shabbos Shalom Shalom. I mean that's the Mekabel from the Yisrael. Out of the year the person's Chaim Aprimim is Mekabel from your Hanachas Sichlis of Yisrael. So that's the Dugmas Eis Yud Kiri Shein. You say Dugmas Yud, he says Dugmas Eirish. Amuch, you know, the Yiddish Shem Kensh Beim Shayach Lesbir Gam Lamatel Zolasi. The Hachach Mishal Osim Dir Negel Dugmas Eirish the Adam Gam Zolasi. There's Dugmas Eirish Vavke. But the Rebbe said that Torah is Mediyuk. It's not the Pstar. As it Trachtman, the Avnarag says that the Ramos Meram is Shem Avai. Had nothing to do with what he wants to say. What's he said? I say this means a remes, and the words are tzuget shebetz rebes under the zacha. The Rambam saying that it's a very fundamental thing, and then there's hinted over there with the aces, no kesher to the Indian. The Rambam saying this, it's Torah is meduik. The Rambam's not going to make it psa remes. Rein far from the remes there. It's not a. Everything is meduik. So there's a remes, but the remes is masim. A remes means as a pichsidus yud kivavke. But the pale it's masim to the avon of the Rambam, to the avon of what the Rambam is saying. Because he said how you say this, Amud HaChochmas corresponds to the four aces of Shemavai. Avodat Zeremes, because Shemavai is apipnimi, that's the Kodesh Shemavai. There are many things. I'm saying there is not many sikhs and amarim this Nekudah. A lot of times trachten that there's remazim in Torah, but it's nothing to do with the inner stamas Zeremes. They're saying everything is masim to the amitas in you. There's nothing that's stam there. Everything is eisgalta. Everything is meduyik. That's the word. It's meduik betachlis. So it's taka remes shemavayit, but it's a remes of this inyan. Means it's this inyan at tifra even for within without basis. It's not a eingeworfen technically a remes. It's beessen to the mitas inyan. Now the Rebbe zu noch a word. Hine, but there's more things not okay. Is there Davis and now? There's the get. So Havai is merubash and Rosh Davis, right? Yud Kivavke is Rosh Tevis. You say that says Avod Chachmas.
Are you going to Yud all the aces?
What do you mean? The Biurim? That's not this. I'm saying what. They're saying you could call it Nenet Havishnu Beis.
4 dargis and the six out.
Yeah, but say that shit come okay. I'm saying. I'm saying. Basically, what this main them is. I'm saying the pratim, the kodesh haseichon, the prati haseichon, and there's the shachlamata, the prati makabel. You learn it all. Everybody learns in Zal. No, some machalach you learn the kodesh kaf shetach. No. It's one of the things you learn in Zal. No, learn the kodesh, the period of the etzem mashpia. Yeah. That's just that's not. Shimu is in the Kodesh HaSeichel. Not sure what's going on over there. Yeah, this is what we do. Good. But Ezra Shetevas Anal, that's the emes thing. What I'm saying. Good. Anyways, Ezra Shetevas Anal Shnei Sugin. Oh, so which letters are the Rosh Tevis of Avayah? Yud K, the Yud of Yisaid, the He of Hay Yisaidis, Vav of Amud, and He of Chachmas. The Yud of the Yisaid is a different type of ace. All the other aces are aces Hashimush. They're aces. It's not a part of the Sheirish. Mashiach, the Yud of the Yisaid is part of the Sheirish. It's part of the word itself. So the aces has above He Vav Keshav Rosh Tevis, and aces Hashimush Tevis Shalem. Yeah. So mainly you could have the letters without the aces. You could have these words without the letters. So that's behesim side to the nekuda of Yud Hashem Avaya. Means you say the Yud is in the word. Because the aces, the difference in ace Yud to the rest of the aces is that the rest of the aces is shaykh to Shinu. Mashiach, the ace Yud is not shaykh Shinu. And that's going to be negay also to the Teichen of the Rambam of the Vasfar Eifen of Zayin Danach. Gam zel be'esem listen to Yuchash be'es Yud Hashem Avaya al Shar aces. Hin Yedua is already a word from the Bleiv. Shem Avaya, period alter, says in Tanya, even though it says that Havaya has no pirush, Yud Kivavki Kama Yishu Nechta has no pirush, but the Poel, Shem Avaya, the alter attaches that Shem Avaya pirush, Shem Hav is a Kelma Ayin Liyesh. Havaya lo Shem Hav. What's the Yud? Because the yud is mishamish ala pula she b'lashon heve v'tam. When you have a yud, so that's made that it's a constant thing. This is a trash.